Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm really excited to be here with these fantastic women as we present the fourth video in the PWNCares series. So just to give you a little bit of background on that real quick before I let them introduce themselves. PWNCares is a project of Positive Women's Network USA. Of course, we're the ones hosting today's session. I'm sorry, Jada, I'm gonna mute you just because I hear a little tip tap. Feel free to unmute yourself if needed. So Positive Women's Network USA is a national membership body of women living with HIV, including people of trans experience. And we are an advocacy organization, but we're also just a great network of support for women living with HIV. We're an amazing community. We have a summit every 2 years, usually. That's a really wonderful gathering space. We do in-person trainings for regional chapters. We also do webinar trainings. We had one yesterday. Some of you may have been on that or at least heard about it, about engaging candidates on issues that are important to women living with HIV. So that's a little bit about who we are. And if you're not already a member, we hope that you will consider joining us or at least learning more after today. And so PWNCares is a special project that we got generous support from Viv's Positive Action for Women grant to do this. And so the idea is it's a series of interactive videos that were made by and for women living with HIV, including people of trans experience. And they're about different topics that are of interest, especially for folks who are recently diagnosed or who feel isolated. So all are welcome to join these, but we do have that sort of target audience. And so if you are not someone who was recently diagnosed, but you know folks who are, this is a great resource for them. If you work with folks who are, it is a great resource. We'll be posting the full video on our website after this today. And there's also a downloadable version. So if you want to show it at a meeting or a group or an event, you can do that. You can download it and play it without worrying about streaming. There will be a discussion guide available that you can use. And we already have 3 other episodes that we've already produced that have already been launched. If you were not part of those or didn't hear about them, there was one on healthy relationships and violence. There's one on U equals U, and there's one on disclosure. And those are all available from our website. So hopefully, if you haven't already seen those, you can go check them out after this. And we have several more that will be coming out over the next few months. So without further ado, for today's PWNCares, it's keeping it real, being trans and living with HIV. And we have 3 awesome panelists with us, 2 of whom are in the video that we're going to see in just a moment. And so I'm just going to start in the order that I see you on my screen. Tiommi Luckett is going to introduce herself first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiommi. I'm living in Little Rock, Arkansas. Pronouns she, her, hers, and diagnosed in 2012. Also, PWN USA Communications Assistant.
Thank you. And Jada.
And been positive since 1997 or 96. God knows, I forget. But I am so proud of being a member of Positive Women's Network, Positively Trans, and all those who are ready to show the real face of HIV.
Thank you so much. And you were muted at the very beginning of that. I unmuted you where you were talking about your year of diagnosis. So if you can just let us know what you said right before that.
No, that's the bad part. I said I was, my name is Jada Cardona. I am a human rights activist. I was diagnosed with HIV in 96 or 97, I forget. And I think you heard the rest.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and then we have a couple of other panelists. So Lynn Curley is here. Lynn, can you introduce yourself? I'm gonna unmute you.
Hello guys, my name is Lynn Curley. I am from the Navajo Nation, Arizona, Hello, everyone. I am a proud member of PWN recently. I just opened my new organization known as Interwoven. So congrats on that. But nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Oh, I was
And
diagnosed with HIV back in 2010.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it looks like Dee Dee was able to join us after all. Dee Dee, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dee Dee.
Hi, Lamar.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry you can't see me, can you?
No, but that's okay. We're glad you're here.
Well, good, because my hair is one-sided.
And can you introduce yourself for us real quick, Dee Dee?
Yes, I'm Dee Dee Chambly, and I'm a Southern civil rights advocate, activist, and HIV survivor here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Great, thank you so much. And I realize I forgot to introduce myself. I do this every single time. I'm Jenny Smith-Camejo. I'm the Communications Director for Positive Women's Network USA, for those who don't know me. I don't know why I always forget to introduce myself on these. Great, so without further ado, let's go ahead and watch the video. I'm super excited to show this to you all. And let's see, here we go. 1 second. Okay, wait, hold on. Make sure the audio, okay, yes, got it. I want to make sure the audio was going to work. Here we go.
I believed for the longest time this could never happen to me. I believed for the longest time this could never happen to me. People are always going to hate on you, but you have to remember why you're here. Once you have that, honey, everything else will fall in place. So I'd say for the first 10 years of being diagnosed, knowing that somebody has told me I had HIV, I went through a denial stage that was huge. And then after that, you know, the anger and the depression and all the other stages that came finally to acceptance.
I received my diagnosis from the ear, nose, and throat doctor. I was going deaf. And so all that he could tell me was that the test came back positive. And it was basically, I wish you well. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not an HIV specialist. This is not my field, right? So for the next 3 months, all I could do was just cry because I didn't know where to go. I researched HIV, Arkansas, AIDS, Arkansas, HIV, Little Rock, as much as I could, and I came up clueless.
I had no support. They told me they had a support group. And when I went there, they were all older white gay men. And I was a 20-year-old Latina boy. I felt more like prey. It wasn't a conversation of lifting up. The conversation trying to sleep with you. That wasn't support. Now, where support came from was my friends. I remember telling my first friend, his name was Sam, and he was the first person I told I had HIV, aside from the people who found out. And we were in college at Loyola together, and I couldn't even wait. We got into the elevator to go up, and it was just me and him, and I just broke down crying and told him. He didn't know what to say, but what he did do was hold me and told me it's okay, I'll be here. That's the support I got.
I believe that the rate of transmission continues to happen at disproportionate rates in transgender women, particularly transgender women of color, because of the lack of that. Even if you have health care, it's that stigma that we receive when we walk into doctor's offices and people are uneducated about transgender issues. We are misgendered, we're dead named. That prevents us, from even getting into care, right? Even if we do learn our diagnosis.
Well, I actually think the people who are saying that all HIV caught by trans women of color is caught by sex work, I have to say that they're uneducated, obviously don't know the facts, and are spreading lies.
The rate of transmission happens because the modes of transmission affect transgender people across the board, whether it is through sex, whether it is through needles. We are sharing needles, getting, for hormone replacement therapy, right? One of us may have access, but the other one doesn't. Everything that we face prevents us from actually doing what is necessary to take care of ourselves properly.
I didn't catch it doing any sex work. I caught HIV being in love with someone and trusting them to not use a condom at 17, 18 years old. Very vulnerable. It wasn't sex work at all. It was me falling in love. I have found that my journey as a trans woman of color has led me to several closed doors, but has made me open doors to creative money management. To have to find some things that maybe the world may think that's uncomfortable, but to me it's survival. And if I can get through this and have my little money, then I'll be fine. So I've been taught to allow myself to go through trauma to come out with something good, which would be the money. And so that I can live and pay my rent, feed myself, and help others. There's so many girls down south that cannot get access to hormones, basic hormones, unless they become HIV positive. It's such a sad case when people can get housing for being HIV positive, but they have to be HIV positive. A girlfriend of mine has HIV, and another girlfriend of mine does not have HIV. Both are young black trans women of color who live in New Orleans. The one who is diagnosed with HIV is beginning her transitioning. She's starting to take her hormones. She's actually starting to be more stable because they have a housing program for her, which has helped her become more stable and, be at a place where she can actually deal with things. Whereas my other girlfriend, who doesn't have HIV, is still homeless and still seeking everything, her hormones and everything. She's getting it illegally. She's doing what she has to do to survive as a transgender person.
Not many trans women living with HIV engaging in sex work are going to trust their narrative with anyone because of the stigma that's attached to being positive and being a sex worker and being trans, because they do run the risk of being incarcerated. And even in states that don't have an HIV criminalization statute, there are still sentence enhancements, right? Especially as far as sex workers involved.
In Louisiana, for the years of 2014 and 2015, 100% of all the transgender people who were diagnosed with HIV, newly diagnosed with HIV, 100% of them were trans women of color. It really hits my head to recognize and realize that there is a big racial divide and a very big disparity in those two categories. And the way that we attack those statistics is leveling the playing field. HIV has brought out the problems of our society. It has brought us to have to address the problems of our society, recognizing the disparity that goes on in our country. We know that the rights that we have are very limited. We are not protected in the workplace. And to me, that's one of the biggest things. There was a point in my life where when I started to transition that I couldn't even help people like take out their garbage or wash their dishes, clean the garbage out of their yards, wash a car, because I was almost untouchable. People didn't understand that I was just a human being trying to survive. What they saw was the monster that they thought that they created, because he was half woman, she was half a man. And I didn't understand it at the time. All I understood was everybody's looking at me. I've got to be ugly, or, internal struggles that human beings have when people look at them. That's the thing. They focus on the minuscule issues instead of giving folks a chance at an equal playing field. Because if I had a chance to transition when I was 17, in 1980 something, it would have been easier for me. No, it wasn't. I had to wait till I was 35 and had to say, I have to do this for myself.
I'm a blasphemer, I'm an abomination. I've heard all of those words come out of the mouths of Christians, right? Who were supposed to preach love, because if we want to get technical about the Bible, I'm not uneducated about that either.
Because it's wrong for the church, it's wrong for your mom, it's wrong for your dad, it's wrong for this, it's wrong for that. You always feel like you're wrong. When do you become right? Well, I'm going to tell you, you become right when you accept yourself and you decide what's best for your heart. Once you have that, honey, everything else will fall in place. After so long getting into addiction, getting into homelessness, it made me look at myself. It made me look deeply within my soul and examine why I'm going through this. And the veil was lifted when I put on my first dress. I didn't have to get high anymore. I didn't have to hide anymore. It turned into a budding flower. And at the beginning, it was an ugly flower. And people didn't understand the flower. But I had this one friend who told me that I was a rare flower.
That life doesn't end with this diagnosis. There is so much more life to be had, so many more things to do, because I'm living proof, right? I'm someone who engaged in survival sex work. I'm a recovering addict. I have been incarcerated, and all of that made me who I am today, right? That HIV diagnosis didn't stop me, and neither did all of these other afflictions. And so life goes on, and I refuse to allow my past to have any power over me. So that's why I continue to be the author of my own narrative.
People are always going to hate on you. People are always going to tell you no. But you have to remember why you're here. And you're here to make you happy. Once you love yourself, everything will fall in place.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome. Huh? I see some nice comments here in the chat box. So we're going to give folks an opportunity to ask questions or share your own experiences in just a moment. Before we do so, I wanted to let you all know a couple of quick things in terms of how that's going to work. So I'm going to ask for, you're welcome to use the chat box to talk to each other back and forth and share your feedback on the video or on folks' comments. But for questions that you would like the panelists to address, or that you would like for me, or any kind of feedback that you would like for me to share vocally in here, I would love for you all to use the Q&A box, because the chat box moves really fast and it can be hard to keep up with. So there's a Q&A box on your screen, and so if you have a question or a comment that you would like to be shared out loud with the panelists, please make sure to use that Q&A box. And you're welcome to start putting questions in right now or whenever you want, whenever they come to you. And so before we start answering questions from participants, I did want to give our panelists an opportunity. So first, Tiommi and Jada to share any other thoughts or context related to the video or in addition to the video. And then I'd also like to give Lynn and Dee Dee a chance to sort of weigh in on their own experiences and how they can relate to what Tiommi and Jada were talking about in that video. So Tiommi, is there anything that you would like to add to what was in the video?
Hi everybody. So it had been a while since the video was shot. I actually forgot like some of the things that we talked about, but what was in the video and from what I saw of Jada's interview, she touched on, the stages of grief, right? And for me, like to be able to be on this webinar at this point in my life and to know, that I went through the stages of grief as well. I never identified it. And the denial stage for me lasted for 2 years. So that's what I hadn't ever told anyone was, yes, I've been incarcerated, but it was right at the time when I had no other choice but to get sober, right? And I was ordered to stay in a rehab facility. Well, within their rehab facility, they had these people, this organization that came in and they provided HIV tests, the Luckett. And when I decided to go into that room, that's when I learned that my body was producing HIV antibodies. And I didn't believe it. And I just walked around for 2 years, just denying that this was my reality. And within working to, become clean and sober, that's when I got sick. And it was at that point that I actually got the confirmatory test 2 years later. So that's when, I was officially diagnosed with HIV in September of 2012. Although that first Luckett happened in October of 2010. So for me, I never acknowledged the fact that, I grieved over the life that I thought I would never have upon, just that initial test. But I shared that with one other person, and that was right before this webinar, because it just came to me that this was my truth and I had walked away from it. And yeah, so I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that we all dealt with our diagnosis different, but there are some similarities. Like I heard Jada and it made me point a mirror to myself. So yeah, that's one thing I want to share.
Thank you so much. And do you mind if I ask you one quick question about what you just shared?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did they, when you took that the OraQuick test, did they give you any kind of counseling or offer any kind of support around that at that time?
They tried, but I was in this facility with men, and I had already become a target as a trans woman. And I didn't want to leave that facility with them and, you know, have to come back to all of these questions as to why I left or speculation as to why I left. I literally put it out of my mind the moment I closed the door behind me walking out of that room. I went back to the recreation area with a huge fake smile on my face and my heart beating 90 miles a minute. And I did that for the remainder of my time there. But when I've shared that, you know, I just cried myself to sleep, that's what I did. I just cried myself to sleep because I just knew that there was no way that I, a Black trans woman in Arkansas, was going to ever have a quality of life after that diagnosis. But after I got the confirmatory 2 years later, I was in a really good space. I was in a really good headspace mentally, spiritually. And I was like, you know what? I want to live. I want to live. And if no one can help me, then I'm going to do this on my own. And that's where I talk about, like, I did the research for 3 months and I was finally, you know, connected to care.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Jada, is there anything you would like to add to what was in your video or in the video, the interview of you in the video?
One of the things I have to say is people always tell me, Jada, you're a powerful speaker, and I never really see it. I never really feel it. But I felt it. I always speak from my heart, and I always try to be the realest I can be at all times. So real that, you know, I'm so full of, I always tell my business. I always tell the truth. To the point where I sometimes am racing through life, and sometimes it makes me stop and listen and feel. This life ain't easy. It's not easy in the intersections that I face. Being transgender, being of color, living with HIV, being a woman. It's just, it all culminates into a ball of always trying, always looking for a next opportunity to better myself and learn. You know, I just thank God about my spirit. I don't know where I got it from, probably my mom, but it's a indomitable spirit. I can't even stop myself, and I don't even know how. And frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I'm gonna continue, and I'm gonna live. And I was shocked that I mentioned my friend Sam's name. He's currently my boss. He's around here somewhere. But I forgot that I had mentioned him, and how the same day I found out I had HIV, how I went and told him. And he ain't never told nobody. It's been 20 odd years. I ain't never told nobody. So that was great. You know, that's about all the little, I can actually envelop and embrace that I can speak now. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing. And then I wanted to ask, before we start taking questions from folks, you guys can hear me, right? I just got a message. Okay, sorry, I just got a message from Zoom. Did Miss Dee or Miss Lynn, did you guys have anything that you would like to share from what you saw in the video? you know, how you were able to relate to that.
I'll share a little. First of all, great job, Tiommi. Wonderful job, Jada. Miss you girls. Look beautiful. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the piece. I can relate to, I guess, how Jada was saying, um, going into this as a Latina boy, Latina girl. I was of that same person when I was diagnosed. I was barely into my transitional phase at the age of 21 because I was diagnosed in 2010. But it was the same thing. Just like how Tiommi was saying, I walked into this, I was a swab. It was at a Native American Indian center or something. And I did all the stuff I'd done in the past, the whole thing of escorting, sex work, all of that. So my mind was already set for certain things. But other than that, I thought I was ready. I thought I could say, okay, it's gonna be positive, so I'm gonna be okay for it. But once I heard that, and they said you have to go in for your confirmatory, I thought my heart sank. I went there with my cousin brother, who is also gay. But I remember walking out. We both took it together, and they never called him back in. They called me back in, and then I remember walking out, and he was looking at me, and I had nothing to say. So what did they say? I was like, oh, they just told me this, they told me that, they gave me condoms, whatnot, so I'm okay. And I left. I never went back because in my mind, the Indian reservation is so small that when people start finding out about you, the confidentiality is not there no more. So I hid for so long. My heart sank. I cried when I got home. I had nobody to talk to. I thought I only had a year to live. And I thought to myself, this is what I get for all the money I wanted to gain was a payment for my life. So the only thing that I can go back to was alcohol and drugs. I thought, if I have a year to live, I'm gonna make sure I make my damn money. So I got to the alcohol, I got to the drugs, and I went back out on the streets. And mind you, 2010, I got my degree, my bachelor's degree in human resources. I did it because my dad wanted me to finish, so I did that. But then I had a really nice apartment. But I left all that because I heard you can make more money in Los Angeles. I packed all my clothes, I hitched it to Los Angeles from Phoenix, was homeless for 3 months. But only one person, and that's who I went with to PWN Myrtle Beach, was Storm. She was a resource center there, Friends in LA. She changed my life and told me that you can go here, we can do this for you, we can do that for you. But I say, you know what? I hear that all the time. I haven't been to anything like this. She's like, well, we'll take you to HIV 101 because that will teach you everything that you need to know, the basics of it. When I went to HIV 101, I found people that were living with HIV for 10 years. Mind you, 15 years. And I thought, wow, I can do this. So I went from there and we went through classes together. Storm was there for me all the way through. And I always tell her that, thank you so much for bringing me back to where I feel like I belong. But just like how Jada says, I've been the one that's always in the backdrop. I never was the person that would speak out loud, or I never was that person to put myself into that position to say something, because I was always just the observer. But thanks to the training of Block, Possibly Trans, TLC, PWN, all these organizations that had got me through these situations made me feel like I belonged and I had a voice. Just like what Jada's saying, you know what? This is not my work. This is the work of my dad. I mean, that's my angel. And every single time I think about him, he's always there. And it's weird because my dad used to love jobs. Everywhere I go, like when I check into like Myrtle Beach South Carolina, when I checked into the hotel, I saw a Jolly Rancher on the bed. So little things like kind of, I don't know, it connects me with him. And he used to say, you know what, Lynn, you're going to do great things later on. You have a voice. You have to just know how to use it. You have to think before you speak. Sometimes I say a lot of crazy things. But you know what? I'm appreciative where I am, what I'm doing. My self-care, I'm finally stepping back into it. It's been a long process, but like all the beautiful ladies on the screen, we're all survivors. I'm so grateful, and it's a blessing to have met each and every one of you. And, you know, I am starting my own organization here for the Navajo Nation, trans, as well as GLBTQ organization. So I'm just praying everything goes well. I am also announced as the campaign manager for the Transgender Navajo Nation president running currently. So that's like something big for me. Like, I never thought I would be that person. I never even seen myself at that level of political aspect. But somebody saw great wonders in me and decided to appoint me as a campaign manager for her. So I'm doing everything I can there. I'm doing everything I can with the organization I started. I'm just grateful to be on this panel, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. Congratulations. And then Miss Dee. I'm sorry, my cat is, sorry. My cat was in my lap and she just jumped down and got tangled in my headphones. Very professional, sorry about that. Miss Dee, would you care to share anything based on what you saw in the video?
You want to select something that has 140 or less, and that's
the best for you. For you.
Good. Okay.
okay.
Okay, I don't know if Miss Dee is able to share with us right now. So Dee, if you are, please feel free to unmute yourself at any time. And yeah, if not, we can go ahead and start taking some questions from folks. So again, if you don't mind using the Q&A box on your screen, or if you're not able to type questions in the Q&A box, but you would like to ask them, you can also raise your hand. There should be a little thing that lets you raise your hand, and I can make you a panelist temporarily, just so that you can ask your question verbally rather than typing it in. But do be aware that this is being recorded, so nobody who is participating in this will be able to be identified in the recording unless you are a panelist, in which case you will be. So just do be aware of that if you want to speak out loud, that you'll be identifiable. But if anything you put in the Q&A box, you will not be identified by name in the recording of this. So I invite folks to ask questions or share your own experiences in the Q&A box at this time. And you can also share, you know, any feedback that you would like to share with the presenters. You can also put that in the Q&A box, and I can share that out loud.
Jenny, while we're waiting on people to ask questions or decide, can I tell a little story?
Yes, please do.
Okay, well, I wanted to let you know that before, when I found out I had HIV, a lot of things became lost to me. And one of the things that became lost to me was the most important thing, and it was me and myself. I want to let the participants and the panel, the attendees and the panelists, everyone know that the key to survival in this life, not only for HIV, is to start loving yourself, doing good by yourself, doing well to yourself, and embracing things that are inside of you that you can love. You see, I spent 25, 30 years, maybe a few more years of my life hating myself, not liking myself. And today I can actually say I love myself. And that's when things start opening up. accepting that I had HIV, accepting that I'm a trans woman, accepting all my warts, that's changed my life. It's made me realize that, excuse me, despite all of the things that we go through, all of the struggles, there is still one person that I have. And that person is me. I can always hug myself. I can always love myself. It's not always the feeling of someone else hugging you, but at least it's somebody who's hugging you who knows it all about you. Somebody who can love you despite of you, and that person is you. So I invite everyone to start taking some self-care, doing things for yourself, feeling good about yourself, and even start learning how to live alone. Start learning how to be with yourself and loving that person. Not saying isolate, not saying that, but mostly take time out for yourself. And those things I've learned has taught me more about myself than anything. It's the little voice in the back who speaks to yourself, who speaks to you. They know what they're talking about. So I just wanted to say a few words about loving yourself and taking care of yourself, finding yourself, loving yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jada. So we have a couple of questions here. So the first question we had was, what are medical challenges of living with HIV that are not being addressed that should be?
I'll start. Okay, so when you get the diagnosis, the challenge for me was actually being seen as my authentic self. And such is the narrative of a lot of trans women who go into providers' offices. So what I was alluding to in the video was the fact that, you know, if we don't feel that the space is welcoming and inviting of all people, then we're not going to want to sit there, right? And some of the things that are asked of, you know, us when we're like having that one-on-one with the doctor or whoever is doing the intake form are just, you know, ridiculous and asinine questions and quite offensive when you go in and you share that you're a person of trans experience. You know, just the fact that I do take care of myself and I'm undetectable, like that being seen as a rarity. And I'm like, how? You know, how is it being seen as a rarity? Why would you think that I, as a Black trans woman, would not be taking care of myself? So it's like we're trying to get over all of the stereotypes that people hold in their minds and get them to see that we're just a regular person. You know, I'm just one individual. Don't base my experience off of other people's experience, because like if I wasn't in a mindset to where I want to live regardless of what, I would have walked out of there. You know, I wouldn't have gotten the help that I needed. And it's much like Jada said, you know, in Louisiana, if you're not a trans woman living with HIV, then you're not going to have access to the care that you need as a trans individual, right? And even in Arkansas, there are services that I can't access as a trans woman, even living with HIV, right? And that was even before, you know, I got insurance to cover things. But now, like, there are these trans exclusions in insurance policies. So like what's most important for my transition, I can't get access to. They're only in certain parts of the country. And so, yeah, like when you don't have the access that you actually need, you're not going to have the quality of life that you're trying to achieve.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's you know, Positive Women's Network does a lot of advocacy around access for healthcare and also you know, for transgender needs as well and medical needs. So yeah, exactly. It's an area that still needs a whole lot of work. Did any of the other panelists have anything to add to that around medical needs of living with HIV that are not being addressed?
Well, one of the things that I have been suffering with recently is neuropathy. I've been having problems with my nerves in my legs and feet, and it's getting progressively worse. There are things that people don't tell you that HIV specifically does attack your body. Not just your immune system, but there are other things that HIV does cause. So I want everyone to do some research and don't take their aches and pains lightly. I've been having like issues. That's weird because I am very healthy. My viral load is undetectable, and my CD4 cells are extremely high, but I'm still having issues. For one, I can identify is the neuropathy in my feet, and I mean, I have different things, and you also have to remember to keep your screenings if you're over certain ages for breast cancer, for things. Don't just think that because you go to the doctor every other month that all your problems are addressed. Take the time to research what you really need in your life as who you are, and take those preliminary tests, those preventative tests, those informatory tests. So, you know, like I said, I've been having a lot of neuropathy in my bottom of my feet and my legs and my upper thighs, and it's getting harder to walk, seems like. Also, the medication, now that you hear that there are lawsuits now, I had taken a triplet for 10 years and come to find out that my hips have arthritis in them and I have worn down hip sockets. So I don't even know what to do. How can I prove it? It doesn't even matter if I get money for it. I still have all this extra pain and grinding in my hips. You know, so there are things that we need to think about. The medications, it's so much that we need to be on top of. Don't just let people hand you what they feel like is the best for you, because what they feel is the best for you might not be the best for you. Do your research, take care of yourself, live well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We've got some more questions here. So I see one. So what is the best way to try and have trans women to open up and get tested and get into care? I live in Florida and I find it very difficult to get my trans sisters into care or even to get tested.
People don't want to get tested because they're afraid of getting the positive diagnosis. However, if we all get together and show them that we are people living with HIV, that's the beautiful part of Positive Women's Network. That's the beautiful part of finding people who have HIV that you can get together with, and we're regular, everyday people, and it's okay to have HIV. Just take care of yourself. The stigma is the part for people who don't know what HIV is. They think it's a big which it can be. But the truth is, nowadays, with all the treatments and all the things that you can do and still live, I'm a so far over 20-year survivor, still going strong. So there's life after an HIV diagnosis.
Thank you. And there's a comment here that you all inspire this participant. She's a little over a year with her diagnosis, and the things she's learned are remarkable. She works for a nonprofit organization that serves this community, and she thanks you all for sharing. So thank you for that feedback. Here's a question. Is PrEP promoted in trans communities? She feels like it's a silly question, but she genuinely doesn't know and wants to advocate it for it to be if it's already not happening.
Actually, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lynn. I've spoken. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It is being promoted on the reservation out here. I don't know very much about it. My friend Maddie Jim, she's the New Mexico Health Director, and she's the one that's really been educating me on PrEP, on how to get it out there and promote for it. But I recently just started doing my research on PrEP. But other than that, I'm just like the reservation is so isolated. So to even talk about HIV at a table is taboo. So I'm aiming towards the people that don't want to get, let's say, treatment, like the earlier statement. I believe that it has to be an educational format. The only reason why I was comfortable with myself and how I was talking to my family is my mother was already in the educational field of being a teacher with the Head Start. So she kind of already knows about the disease or whatever it is that come out. So she has to be educated about it. My father was already okay with it. But that's very rare on the reservation for your parents to be okay with your diagnosis, because then you're looked at as like how Jada was saying, that monster. But currently, like my family is very supportive of who I am and what I am. That it has made me to realize that, why am I running from this? Well, I could just take care of myself. So that's why I do that for that. But as far as PrEP being promoted, it's being promoted on the reservation. I just need to do more research about it, and then I can go from there.
Great, thanks. Did any other panelists have anything to add around PrEP being promoted in the trans community?
Yeah, just that I can't think of the organization, but I actually worked with them. That's the thing, like in this field, we do the work and then we go on to do more work, right? So right now it slips my mind, but I know that there's a pamphlet out that I helped to work on as far as PrEP in the trans community. And part of my mind wants to say like North Shine something. I'm not for sure, but yeah, after this is over, I will research it and submit it to everyone who's registered. Or simply, if I knew who that was, I can get that information to you to have that as a resource. And they will print it and send you copies of it if you ask for it for free.
Great, thank you. Okay, here's a question. As someone who operates a drop-in center in Las Vegas that provides service to the transgender community, what service may be valuable for us to include? We currently provide a place for people to come in and rest during our business hours. We provide emergency food, needle exchange, and a clothing exchange. Is there another service that can be added to help those living with HIV?
I don't know. Wait, Las Vegas? Is that what was said? Las Vegas?
Yes, in Las Vegas.
Okay, transportation issue might be an issue. Transportation may be an issue for the trans community in which you serve. So I don't know if you guys have like, and I actually hate this. I don't even know why I'm mentioning it, but I will use public transportation because that's one of the things that Lucy's Place does here is make sure that the community actually has like access to transportation to get to where they need to go. In doing so, like with the public transportation system here, you just have to be prepared a little early to take time into like how long this ride is going to be, right? Food is important. Having some space to like get out of the heat, that's important. Maybe somewhere within the facility to clean up, if that's even necessary, if that's a thing that's necessary. I try to put myself in other people's shoes. And if I look and see that their needs aren't met, then that's actually how I try to gauge going about like what services need to be offered. Yeah, just seeing them as a human, like what do humans need to survive, right? And I think one of our participants, said that there are some differences, but there are so many more similarities, right? Between the cisgender community and the transgender community. So like, as a person, what would a person need? like to survive, not just a trans person living with HIV, but a person living with HIV, and act accordingly.
Another thing that I have taken from across the country in different drop-in centers that I have seen. One that in Washington, D.C., I don't know how many people have heard of Casa Ruby, but Casa Ruby has hot food. It's if someone comes in and says, I'm hungry, they can fix a nice hot meal. It's already prepared. They just put it in the microwave or whatever and have a nice hot meal. Here in New Orleans, there's a drop-in center for the homeless where they can come and bring their dirty clothes so that the people will take them and wash them so that they can have clean clothes. There is also a mail where you can receive mail and people will take care of your mail. Services like shower services, and like Tiommi was saying, clean up services, but clean yourself up services. So those things are very important. And I'd also like to stress the importance of having availability outside of regular business hours. As a lot, I remember when I was fresh in my transition, coming outside in the daytime was, oh no, I had to wait till the sun went down, and because the lighting, because of the whatever. But so those are the things that I would suggest, having times that are unconventional, I'd say, having clean yourself up services, showers, available times to wash your clothes, a place to get some mail. Also, what else did I say this? Oh, hot food. Hot food, something not, and I understand a food pantry is good. I mean, I like those things, but picture if you're homeless and have to tote everything all the time and have no can opener, have no microwave, but at least they can know that when they walk in, they can have, even if it's a salad or pasta or some meat and something to drink, something cold to drink. That's always a plus.
I might add, also, like in those business hours, if there's some type of programs that could like aid in skills building, who's to say? I mean, like I was homeless at one point and had a job, right? But then there were times when no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough to even get in the door. But if I came with a certain set of skills, I couldn't be denied, without going back and being like, oh, okay, this is discrimination, right? So yeah, definitely have some like skills building programs, resume building, learn how to fill out a job application, right? Because that is terror. It strikes terror in me filling out an application. I almost didn't get this job because I didn't want to apply for it, and that's like across the board. I have a best friend who's cisgender, and she's actually tired of filling out applications, and it gets to that point, but she has a work history to where she can fill out an application, even if today I don't feel like doing it. I can't say that about, my community and believe that, we know how to fill out a job application, right? Jada made some really good points, because for those of us who don't have stable housing, if we had somewhere to where our mail could be delivered, then that would actually aid in identification documents, having, a job and all these other things, right? So these are things that are necessary to live. And I don't mean survive. I've been surviving. I'm tired of surviving. That wears me out. I want to be able to rest.
I love you, Tiommi.
I love you too. Okay, that's all I wanted to add.
And another thing is, when I was homeless in California, Los Angeles. When I was at the Friends organization, what they used to do is they used to provide the hot meals as well in the evening, but they also gave out care packages, sort of like makeup, nail polishes, wigs, and whatever you needed. They would have it every other week or so. So that would be something that would be nice too. You know, as far if you can have the funds to provide all those to in a trans community, I think they'll be very grateful for that. And another thing that I do with my organization is right now I'm preparing my trans sisters on how to like become entrepreneurs. I've taken the time to, you know, I'm structuring looms so I can have like portable loom stands, so they can be their own rug weavers. So I'm teaching them how to weave rugs or how to do necklaces and how to do all of that to become self-sufficient and sell those products that they make to a local jeweler or to a local rug weaver collection. So that way they get money back in return, and they give them self-confidence and knowing that what they produce can give them money. That's what I'm doing right now. But other than that, you know, I mean, just being able to give them some type of uh, um supplies to be beautiful, to know that they're accepted, to know that they can live in this on this earth with other people and not being able to be saying, hey, I'm low on funds, so I'm not able to do this for myself. So I'm just gonna wear, you know, I don't know, find other alternative means to have hair, find other alternative means to have makeup, you know, because when I was there in LA, they did that for us. And it made me like, wow, you know, it made me realize that I'm not the only one that's struggling here. Everybody else is struggling as well with me. So it's for me, it was hard to ask for help. It was hard for me to say, give me, I need this. But you know, if you need it and you want it, you have to go and try, you know, you have to ask for it. Nobody can read your mind or anything like that. But I feel like, you know, if you are able to supply them with certain things, that will get them through.
Thank you so much. So I have a question for a trans woman who has just been diagnosed and who feels alone. What would you recommend would be like the first place to start, like looking for support and for, you know, just a way to find other people who are who've been through the same thing or who are going through the same thing?
Well, you
Well,
start off well. PW, PWN is great. I'm sorry, Jada. PWN is great. I think where you're starting off right now is this organization will help you. There's other organizations that are out there that are really friendly, trans friendly. I've been able to coincide and be able to talk to my sisters here on PWN, like Jada and Tiommi and all of them. They're a really good support. I mean, they make me feel like, you know what, blood doesn't have to be family. They're a family of their own. And I'm fairly new to PWN too. I'm fairly new of understanding my diagnosis. I know it was back in 2010, but I'm finally finding a community that I feel like I belong in. It took me so long to actually feel that for a while. I was able to go to TLC and possibly trans and do a short video and cry amongst my sisters because that hit me hard. But they were there the whole time listening to my triumphs and my craziness and my wild, you know, experiences of life, of how I battled this on my own. And it brought us closer together. It really did. And you're off to a great start. You know, PWN has everything, you know, just listening to these girls, these ladies here. I mean, my dad used to say the only way you're going to teach someone is if you actually walk through their footsteps. You know, if you actually know who they are, got to live their emotions, understand that, then you become family. So I'm grateful for PWN. I'm grateful for Positively Trans, in, you know, in MAC, everything. So that's, I mean, I think you're off to a great start here.
for those who are newly diagnosed, I never thought that it would help me, and I always thought that you're crazy if you need it, but I needed it. Therapy, behavioral health therapy. Go see people that will help you uplift yourself. One of the people that I found that I left out of my recovery of finding myself was me. And like I said before, you have to do and take time to learn yourself. You're so busy looking for this person to help you and that person to help you. But one of the major person to help you is you. So get internal, find like people, go to the clinic, and just be open. Find out if there are any transgender support groups or even another trans person in the waiting room. Make connections. Don't be afraid to go up to that person. That person may need you as much as you may think that you need them. So I invite you to be more open, connect with people. PWN and Positively Trans are great organizations. However, they are national organizations, which means there are less people on the ground where you are. They aren't like people you could just reach out and touch unless you live in our cities or be where we are. So I invite you to take the time out to look at your surroundings, go to your friends or maybe meet new friends, you know, seek out what you are in need of. And believe you me, looking inside was the first key to my being who I am today.
Yeah, I want to agree. You know, that's the whole purpose of PWNCares, to target those who are newly diagnosed as well as those who are like living in isolation and, you know, afraid to disclose, right? And roughly around the time that PWN started the PWNCares series, the Well Project also came out with Building Hope, geared towards the same effect, you know, to reach women and trans women who are newly diagnosed. So the PWNCares, this will be the 4th video, and the topics, like she said, has talked about disclosure, when is it right to tell, and, you know, relationships, what does that look like, as well as what U equals U has meant to us as the members, you know, as members. Never mind the fact that I'm staff, but, you know, before I came onto staff, that's when I heard about U equals U. And it just something in me that I already, I was being spiritual path to wanting to, you know, like have mind and body connected. So when something was right with my body, I celebrated it. When something was wrong with my body, I became alerted to it. And the Building Hope, you know, it's their videos. It's a video. It's an outreach tool, maybe like 5 minutes, and it gives a lot of information about the Well Project. And you know, even for those, when I think about people who are newly diagnosed and living in isolation, they don't want to share with another person face to face. That's why I'm offering up these organizations and agencies as solutions so that they can do the research on their own and hear our stories and stories of other women, right, living with HIV and what it was like for them. Because one thing that I have gained out of all of this is the feeling that I'm not doing this by myself, you know. And yeah, I met Jada at the White House, you know, and next thing I knew, she was a part of Positively Trans, you know, and we have a great working relationship. Lynn, same thing, you know, when I first met Lynn, it was through Block, you know, so my work has like gotten me the opportunity to meet phenomenal people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And so she's right. Lynn was right. You know, these people are my family. They are my family because I can go to them with issues that I'm having totally unrelated to HIV, but because I'm a trans person in this world, right? And they know what I'm talking about. So I was able to find like-minded people with similar lived experiences simply because I was able to step out on faith and just, like put myself on the back burner. Or not myself, but put like those fears on the back burner. Like I have to step out, I can't do this by myself. That's what I've gained from doing all of this.
And God knows she's telling the truth. I can't tell you how many times I've dialed Tiommi's phone number and she was in the middle of God knows what. And she just stopped and listened to me. We cried and we stayed on the phone for hours. And by the time I got off that call, that lady, that woman right there, she blessed me. So it's true. Connect, network, find people. Yeah, it's important to go to those conventions and those gatherings of other like-minded or like people so that you can network. Networking is so very important. Jenny, I've reached out to her a lot, and telling her what my fears of my professional development is. And she'll sit up there and tell me what she can. It's just the connections. And that's very important. And I've been connected to some really good people with this work. And I look forward to meeting a lot more.
Thank you so much. So a question around medical providers. Do you have any advice for finding, because it can be difficult to find medical providers who are trans friendly. Are there any tips for finding those providers, like any, places in particular to look or ways to find out?
For me, it took the internet. It took me going to Google, and Google turned out to be my friend, right? And a lot of times when we're looking for organizations or medical providers that are, that see trans or, members of the LGBT umbrella, it's by word of mouth. That's how we know. It's by word of mouth. I've heard of different organizations when I was in other rooms and didn't know anything about them, right? But simply because of word of mouth. Now I would use keywords if I'm researching, LGBT friendly clinic, something like that, HIV, LGBT clinic, anything like that, something with keywords inside of Google and see what comes up like in your area, or the surrounding areas. It's sad that here in Arkansas, I know of one one gender clinic. I know of a gender clinic here under the hospital, UAMS, right? I know of a gender clinic. I also know of a doctor outside of that practice who is the foremost expert on trans issues here in Arkansas, right? But that was through word of mouth. And it took me actually going into that doctor's office to get the services that I needed as one individual. So I really didn't find anything like that in the beginning because my gender identity, it wasn't even like on my mind. All I wanted was for my health to be taken care of. And so at the time it was simply, I need to get these HIV meds. How am I gonna do that? Right? It was after I got on the HIV meds that I actually started hormone replacement therapy. That's not the story for everyone that's in the trans community. Sometimes it's either or, sometimes the hormones are more important because we have to acknowledge that gender dysphoria is real. Even though they're not saying it's a mental illness, it is real. I looked at myself in the mirror today and did not like what I saw. So yeah, it starts with like research. And I'm not gonna say that it's going to be easy. I don't want anybody to think that it's going to be easy because depending on the area that you're in, you may have to actually go out of state. That's where I was leading into. I have people who come into the clinic at UAMS from 2 and 3 hours away just for a 15-minute doctor appointment.
Wow, thanks. Do either of the other panelists have any suggestions for finding trans-friendly medical providers?
I think that for the Navajo reservation as well as other Indian reservations, we really don't have like much of a choice because in order to get free health care within with the Navajo reservation, they have specific clinics, hospitals that we go to. And for those reasons, I didn't really go to any of these healthcare providers because they're more working on a system where it's, you know, they never address you with what they see. They address you with what's on record. And that's why I stepped out of that facility and never went back. But I was talking to a nurse at the Net Pride, where I had a booth set up there, and I was talking to that lady, and she told me that I spoke to her yesterday again, and she's going to be able to make an appointment with me with the board of directors with the IHS, which is the Indian Hospital Services, and she was asking why I never went to their services and whatnot as a trans person. And I told her, I said, this is why I never went back, because not only are they outing me, they're putting me in a security bond where I'm not able to leave the facility and feel like I'm safe. And so she's going to put me on to the board of directors and talk with the board of directors, see if there's a way to change that. And I spoke to my internal healthcare provider, which she was taking care of us on a monthly basis. And I stressed this a lot at some of the conferences I've gone to, that, you know, she only saw us on one day a month for like 5-10 minutes. And there's like 20-30 people that are of my community there. And so I stressed that to her. She told me she had no idea she was doing that. So now she's able to spread our appointments out with them and sporadically through the month. But like I said, you know, unless you're going to be able to pay for all these visits, and another thing is, you know, we live so remote that my doctor, the closest hospital I can go to is 45 miles away, one way, and then coming all the way back over here. So I can just imagine how many other clients or newly diagnosed patients are maybe 65 miles away, 85 miles away. And then there's lack of transportation. And all of that is just like, and then when you want to go once you get diagnosed, they say you need to go see behavioral health or go see someone else, which is another 30 miles away. So in order for you to get the proper care that you want, you have to go by what they give you. And then you have to travel to those areas in order for you to get those services that they require that you receive. By then you're already worn out, you're out of gas. And then in order to get your prescription again, you have to go back to the hospital to get your prescription and wait in the prescription office for like an hour. And all of that adds up, and it's just like, it wears you out. But my point is, you know, I'm just glad I'm able to at least sit down with the board of directors and try and give an insight look on how to be more friendly to the trans community, and let them know that, you know what, we are here, we're seeking your services, but is there a way that you can train your staff or train anything else of this nature to respect us? And it's sad enough that, you know, the Navajo Nation is so far behind that the nation already respects the GLBT community, but our nation does not. And it's very rare to actually see a transgender running for a Navajo Nation presidency. That's something I never thought would happen, but it's happening. So now I need to go in and say, you know what, we're still here and you guys are still ignoring us. So I want you guys to, try and build a communication level to where I feel like it's gonna be okay for us to be respected in the, you know, Indian healthcare services.
Thank you for that. So we've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to I'm gonna put one more question out there, and just to let folks know, because you know, I know that we're getting low on time. So you will be getting an email with a very, very short survey. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to fill out, but we would really, really appreciate your feedback. So just be on the lookout for that. It should be coming you know, later this afternoon. And we'd really appreciate your feedback again. I promise it takes less than 5 minutes to complete. Okay, so one final question. So we have this question. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. I work at a clinic that offers hormone therapy for patients wanting to transition. Can you tell me how common needle sharing is in the transgender community? I must admit that I never thought of a client contracting HIV from sharing a needle for hormone therapy.
Yes. Right now, you know, there are areas where needle exchange is not the norm, right? And so it also in some of these areas, trans people don't have access to insurance. So there is no access to hormones. And even like myself, I am able to get hormones, but I have to pay for needles, right? But I do know of 2 trans women with whom I'm very close with. That's how they contracted HIV. We began this conversation talking about how what prevents, you know, what has the number so high, and one is that we're not getting tested. We're not getting tested because we run the risk of prosecution. We run the risk of violence and having to disclose to our partners that we tested positive. And so a lot of us choose not to know. But in the same instance, when we don't have access to needles to where we can dispose of them properly, then that's what we need. That's what we're doing, you know. And one person contracted HIV simply not sharing a needle, but stuck herself after giving an injection, a hormone injection, you know. And another person just didn't have access to the things that she needed and shared needles and contracted HIV that way. I'm not saying that it's a common occurrence, but I'm saying that it does happen. And so when we're advocating for PrEP and things like that, we have to take into consideration, like I said in the video, modes of transmission affect trans people across the board, you know, and you know, when we don't have access to insurance that is actually trans inclusive, even, you know, we're going out and we're getting our bodies to look the way that we want them to look as they're shaped in our mind. And
silicone injections.
Thank you. Silicone injections, you know, that's another needle that is used. So going, you know, and if you're doing it that route, not by a doctor, then chances are you're not going to have clean needles, you know. And so it's just something to look at. It's more than just the hormones. Like when it comes to us and we don't have access to insurance, we still want those breasts. We still want those hips, you know. We still want that round, plump butt, you know, and we're doing what we feel is necessary in order to get there. Putting ourselves in danger, but still what is necessary. So we're weighing the benefits against, more so than against the risks in doing so.
Thanks. Another reason that syringe exchange is so important. It's a really important thing. Well, we're at time, so I really want to thank our panelists again. Thank you, Tiommi and Jada, so much for sharing your stories in the video, and thank you, Lynn, and Miss Dee Dee, who's not here anymore.
I love you all.
Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
for sharing your stories. And for folks who are on the webinar, if you're not already a member of Positive Women's Network and you would like to be, just look for the follow-up email or go to pwn-usa.org. Actually, this will redirect you there when the webinar ends. We definitely invite you to join us, and we'll be happy to follow up with you one-on-one as well, and provide any support and resources that we can for you. So thank you,
Jenny,
all
I've been
so
noticing
much.
that people are talking about the triplet thing. Google it. Find out some more information. It's very important. And if you're on it, get off it. Get Genvoya. Thank you.
Okay, but just a caveat with that around the AAA thing about getting off it. Make sure that you consult with a doctor around that. Don't just stop taking your HIV meds, please. make sure you talk to your doctor about changing. Just to be clear.
Love you, Tiommi. Love you, Jada.
Thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.